Alexander Kane had spent years building empires, avoiding attachments, and hiding from love. Relationships were distractions, emotional connections were liabilities, and family was a risk he would never take. He thrived on control, success, and a life free from complications until one rainy evening changed everything. A hospital visit he had dismissed as routine became the night his carefully constructed world shattered. A small innocuous wristband held a secret so profound it made him freeze. Two tiny names, his daughters, stared up at him, twin hearts beating under hospital blankets, innocent and unaware, while the mother who had shielded them from him all these years stood strong yet vulnerable before him. In that instant, Alexander realized the life he had so meticulously avoided wasn't lost to chance. It had been waiting, quietly, painfully, for him to show up, and now, facing the truth, he had no choice but to confront the consequences of the years he had ignored love. The rain fell in relentless sheets over the city. As Alexander Kane strode into the hospital lobby, umbrella dripping at his heels. He hated hospitals, the sterile smell, the anxious faces, the vulnerability everywhere, yet today, he had no choice. A business partner had recommended a routine checkup, and as usual, Alexander had dismissed it as unnecessary. But tonight, fate had other plans. He barely noticed the bustling staff, the beeping monitors, or the anxious patients. His mind wandered, calculating, analyzing anything to avoid the small, nagging thought that had been haunting him for weeks. A past he thought he had buried, a life he had avoided acknowledging. Then he saw her, Maya. Heart. Her name had once stirred something in him he had long told himself was gone. Guilt, longing, love. She had left his life abruptly, carrying not only her pride but also a secret he had never suspected. Now, standing in the sterile white hospital room, she was calm yet firm, holding something small in her arms, something that would change everything. Two tiny girls, swaddled in soft blankets, slept peacefully, wristbands around their delicate wrists. Alexander's gaze dropped to them, and his world tilted. The wristbands, Emma Kane and Ella Kane. His heart skipped. Twins, his daughters. The past rushed back in a wave of regret. Every choice, every refusal to commit, every moment he had spent avoiding love, and now, all of it demanded reckoning. Maya looked at him with a mixture of guarded caution and quiet strength. Alexander, she said, her voice steady, these are your children. He shook his head, unable to comprehend. No, this can't be. They are, Maya continued, eyes unwavering. You weren't here, you avoided us, and now you have to face the consequences. Alexander's mind raced. He had always prided himself on control, precision, and foresight, but now, standing before the living proof of his choices, none of his calculations mattered. Two tiny faces, innocent yet unmistakably his, mirrored back at him the life he had ignored. Emma and Ella stirred slightly, their tiny hands reaching instinctively toward Maya, and Alexander felt an unfamiliar ache, a combination of love, fear, and overwhelming responsibility. Maya handed one twin to him cautiously. Emma, the elder, by minutes, blinked up at him, her tiny face scrunching in curiosity. Alexander's hands trembled as he held her. You're really mine, he whispered, almost to himself. Emma cooed softly, reaching for his tie. For a brief moment, he felt the weight of years fall away, replaced by a fragile, yet undeniable connection. Ella remained in Maya's arms, calm, observant, as if measuring him, testing him, deciding whether he could be trusted. I don't know what to say, Alexander admitted, voice raw. I never imagined, Maya interrupted gently. You don't need to say anything yet, just show up. That's the first step. Hours passed as Alexander struggled to process the reality before him. His mind flitted between regret, fear, and an unexplainable warmth. Maya remained steadfast, offering guidance while maintaining boundaries. You can't just sweep in and pretend nothing happened, she said. They need you, but they also need to know you're serious. Alexander nodded, swallowing hard. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll stay. I'll be here, I promise. Emma reached for him again, babbling something that sounded like data, and his throat tightened. Every instinct in him screamed to protect, nurture, and love. For the first time in years, Alexander Kane understood the meaning of responsibility beyond business deals and corporate empires. Maya observed silently, her eyes softening slightly. She had waited years for this moment, not for apologies, but for action. And now, seeing him with the twins, she allowed herself a cautious sliver of hope. That night, Alexander sat by the hospital crib, holding Emma in one arm. Watching Ella sleep beside her mother, his mind replayed every memory of avoidance. Every moment he had feared commitment, but as he looked down at his daughter's tiny hand wrapped around his finger, he realized something profound. Love could no longer be avoided. He could no longer hide from the life he had ignored. "I'm here," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "I'm not leaving again, I swear." Maya caught his gaze, seeing the sincerity, the raw vulnerability. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, Alexander Kane could be the father their daughters deserved, and the man she had once loved might finally confront the mistakes of his past. Alexander left the hospital that night with a restless mind. Sleep eluded him as images of the twins' small faces and the wristbands haunted his thoughts. He had spent his life avoiding attachments, avoiding love, avoiding responsibility, yet here it was, shoved into his arms by fate. The thought of Maya's steady gaze and the unspoken judgment in her eyes made his chest tighten. He knew this was only the beginning. Proving himself to her and to the girls would not be easy. The following morning, he returned to the hospital, determined to make up for lost time. Maya met him at the entrance, arms crossed, expression cautious. "You're early," she said, her tone neutral but firm. "Do you understand what you're stepping into?" "I do," Alexander replied, his voice calm but resolute. "I'm not going anywhere, not this time." Maya studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Fine, but remember, actions speak louder than words. Show up for them, consistently, or don't bother showing up at all." He spent the day helping with the twins' routine, feeding, changing, and trying to coax smiles and laughter. Emma was quick to warm up, giggling as he made silly faces, while Ella remained wary. Watching him from Maya's arms with cautious curiosity, Alexander realized immediately that winning her trust would be the bigger challenge, yet he felt a surge of determination. These girls were his responsibility, and he would not fail them again. Over the next week, he juggled his corporate responsibilities with his new role as a father. Mornings were spent at the hospital, afternoons at board meetings, and evenings reading bedtime stories or playing in the small park near their apartment. Slowly, the twins began to respond, Emma running into his arms when he arrived, Ella tentatively holding his hand as he guided her along the swings. One evening, while Maya prepared dinner, Alexander sat with the twins in the living room. Emma climbed onto his lap, holding a toy phone. "Daddy, talk," she exclaimed. Alexander chuckled and pretended to answer the toy phone, making both girls laugh uncontrollably. Even Ella, who had remained cautious, let out a small giggle, surprising him. Maya watched from the kitchen doorway, a soft smile on her lips. She had not expected him to adapt so quickly. And while her trust remained cautious, she could not deny the beginnings of a bond forming. The weekends were harder. Business trips, urgent meetings, and pressing deadlines constantly threatened to pull him away. Yet each time he returned, the twins ran to greet him, their tiny arms wrapped around his legs or shoulders. Alexander began to understand the gravity of what he had missed all these years. He had built empires and chased success, but now, nothing mattered more than these small, precious lives. One afternoon, a nurse approached Maya with a concern about Ella's diet. Alexander listened intently, asking questions and taking notes, showing a level of involvement that surprised even Maya. "You really are taking this seriously," she said cautiously. He smiled, a soft, genuine smile. "I've spent years running from responsibility. Now I finally have one that matters more than anything." As days turned into weeks, the routine became a rhythm. Alexander's presence, once unfamiliar and intimidating, became a comfort to the twins. Emma learned new words faster with him by her side, and Ella gradually allowed him to hold her hand or help her with small tasks. Maya continued to observe, noting his consistency and sincerity. She remained guarded. Years of disappointment were not erased in a week, but the foundation was being laid. One evening, after a particularly challenging day at work, Alexander arrived at the apartment to find Emma waiting by the door. "Daddy," she shouted, running into his arms. Ella followed closely, shyly peeking from behind Maya. Alexander knelt, letting both girls climb onto his knees. "I missed you today," he said, hugging them tightly. The moment was simple, yet profoundly healing. For the first time, he realized that love was not a distraction or a complication, it was a responsibility, a privilege, and a joy. Later that night, after the twins were asleep, Alexander and Maya sat together in the living room. The silence between them was heavy but comfortable. "You've done well," Maya admitted softly, "but this is just the beginning. They need a father, not a visitor. Consistency, presence, patience." "I understand," he replied, I will be here. Every day. Every moment I can. I won't run this time. Maya looked at him, studying the sincerity in his eyes. She had built walls high and strong, protecting herself and her daughters from the pain of the past. Yet now, she saw cracks forming small, cautious openings where trust could begin to grow. I want to believe you, she whispered, for their sake, and maybe for mine. Alexander reached out, taking her hand gently. You don't have to decide today, he said. Just watch me. Let me prove that I can be the father they deserve and the man you once believed I could be. The next morning, Alexander woke early to prepare breakfast for the twins. Emma bounded into the kitchen, eyes bright. Daddy, pancakes? She exclaimed. Ella followed, clinging to Maya's side but watching Alexander carefully. As he flipped the pancakes, he realized that life had given him a second chance, not just at fatherhood, but at redemption and love. He would not squander it. Alexander had settled into a routine that, for the first time in years, felt meaningful. Each morning, he woke to the laughter of Emma and Ella, their small hands tugging him out of bed before the city had fully stirred. Business calls and corporate pressures still demanded his attention, but they no longer consumed him entirely. Now, his mornings began with breakfast, story time, and play moments he had never imagined could carry such weight and joy. Maya watched quietly from the doorway as Alexander knelt on the floor, helping the twins build a tower of colorful blocks. Emma giggled as Alexander pretended each block was a tiny helicopter crashing into a pile. While Ella cautiously placed her pieces under his guidance, Alexander's attention was fully on them, a stark contrast to the man who had once avoided responsibilities, avoided intimacy, avoided love. You're really different with them, Maya said softly, stepping into the room. I have to be, he replied, not looking up. I can't fix the past, but I can try to shape the future. With them, with you. Maya studied him, noting the subtle changes, the patience in his tone, the careful attention to their small needs, the genuine smile that reached his eyes. Trust had always been earned, and he was earning it slowly, deliberately. Undeniably, the first real challenge came unexpectedly. Emma had a minor accident at school and needed to be picked up immediately. Alexander dropped everything, calling Maya on the way. I'll be there in 10 minutes, he said firmly. We're going together. Maya hesitated but finally agreed. When they arrived at the school, the twins ran toward him. Emma, clutching her scraped knee, immediately sought comfort in his arms. Alexander gently inspected the injury, soothing her with calm words and laughter to distract her from the sting. Ella clung to Maya but watched Alexander, a silent observer of the man who was slowly becoming part of their world. You handled that well, Maya said later. Once they were home, I don't want to fail them, Alexander admitted. Not again, they deserve better than the mistakes I made. Over the next few weeks, Alexander's presence became a constant in the twins' lives. He helped with bath time, bedtime stories, school drop-offs, and even the tedious tasks Maya had once carried alone. Emma's laughter became frequent, Ella's cautious glances began to soften, and Maya's own walls began to crack, though she remained vigilant. One evening, a letter arrived from Alexander's company. A sudden transfer demanded he spend a month overseas, a test of how committed he truly was. He looked at the twins, sleeping peacefully, and Maya, who watched his expression anxiously. I have to go, he admitted quietly. Maya's brow furrowed. A month, you'll miss so much. I know, he said, gripping her hand. But I'll come back. I'm not leaving them. Not really. I'll stay in touch. I'll video call, and I'll be back the moment I can. Maya nodded slowly, trusting for the first time that he truly meant it. Then go, she said. But remember, they are your daughters. Show up for them, always. While Alexander was away, Maya witnessed the twins' growing attachment to him. Emma spoke of her father constantly, recounting small interactions, giggling at the memories. Ella, once shy and reserved, began imitating Alexander's playful gestures, demonstrating trust in subtle ways. When Alexander returned, he was greeted by squeals of excitement. Emma and Ella ran to him, each demanding attention, hugs, and playful wrestling. Alexander laughed, lifting them both, twirling them around, and holding them close. The moment was chaotic, tender, and completely genuine. Proof that time apart had not diminished the bond forming between father and daughters. Challenges continued. Outside voices, jealous colleagues, and the pressures of his corporate life tried to pull him away, testing his resolve. Each obstacle reminded Alexander that love required persistence. Maya's cautious trust remained a barrier he had to navigate with patience, humility, and unwavering commitment. One afternoon, while the twins napped, Maya and Alexander sat together in the quiet living room. The weight of the past hung between them. "I was wrong," Alexander said, voice steady yet vulnerable. "I spent years avoiding love, running from responsibility, but now, I see what I've been missing. I see what I've been running from, and I'm not running anymore." Maya's eyes softened. "Actions matter more than words. Keep showing up, that's all I ask." Alexander nodded. "I will, every single day." As weeks passed, the bond between father and daughters deepened. Emma now called him daddy consistently, while Ella, still shy, whispered the word in moments of trust. Maya observed quietly, seeing a transformation not only in Alexander but in herself. Her cautious heart began to allow hope, realizing that the man who had once avoided love was now embracing it fully, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. One evening, the family sat together in the park. The twins laughed as Alexander pushed them on swings, Maya beside them, smiling softly. She realized that forgiveness, patience, and consistent love had bridged years of absence and pain. Alexander had proven himself not through words, but through actions, showing up, being present, and building trust, one small moment at a time. Alexander woke to the soft morning light streaming through the curtains. Emma and Ella curled up on either side of him. The sound of their quiet breathing, tiny hands resting against his chest, filled him with a profound sense of purpose. He had spent years avoiding love, avoiding commitment, avoiding family, but now, every fiber of his being ached to protect, nurture, and cherish the little lives that were undeniably his own. The previous months had tested him in ways his corporate boardroom never had. Challenges, absences, and skepticism from Maya had forced him to confront not only his past mistakes, but also the kind of man he wanted to be moving forward. And now, seeing the twins' faces in the soft morning glow, he understood the stakes more clearly than ever. Love was no longer optional, it was necessary. Maya entered quietly, carrying breakfast for everyone. Her eyes met his, softening as she took in the sight of him with the girls. "Good morning," she said, smiling, though her voice carried that familiar hint of cautious observation. "Good morning," he replied, his gaze returning to Emma and Ella. "Sleep well." They both nodded, murmuring daddy in sleepy voices. Alexander's heart swelled. It wasn't just the word, it was the recognition, the acceptance, the beginning of trust, something he had long feared he'd never earn. The day passed with gentle routines, laughter, and small lessons. Alexander found himself reading storybooks with the twins, guiding them through playful exercises, and even preparing simple meals. Maya observed quietly, occasionally stepping in but mostly allowing Alexander to navigate his role as a father independently. The twins were responding. Slowly, steadily, they were building trust and love for the man who had once been a stranger. Later that afternoon, Alexander received a call from a business associate requesting an urgent meeting. He hesitated, glancing at the twins playing in the living room. For years, he would have rushed, prioritizing profit and image over relationships. Today, he paused. "I can't do it today," he told the associate firmly. "Family comes first." Hanging up, he returned to the twins, lifting Emma onto his lap as she babbled excitedly about her day. Ella, perched shyly beside Maya, reached out for him, and he held her gently. In that moment, Alexander realized that the most important empire he could ever build wasn't in glass towers or corporate offices. It was here, in laughter, care, and the steady, unshakable bond of family. Evenings were the most revealing. Alexander and Maya often sat together once the twins were asleep, reflecting on the day's small victories and struggles. "You've done more than I expected," Maya admitted one night. "But remember, trust can be fragile. One misstep, and we could lose what we've gained." "I know," Alexander said, his voice quiet but resolute. "I can't undo the past, but I can fight for the future. For them. For us." Their conversations deepened over time, moving from cautious observations to vulnerable admissions. Maya revealed her fears of abandonment, of heartbreak, of repeating old mistakes. Alexander shared his regrets, his years of avoidance, and his newfound clarity about what truly mattered. Each word, each confession, built a bridge over years of distance and distrust. The turning point came one crisp autumn afternoon. The twins had a small school performance, their first recital since Alexander became actively involved in their lives. Emma and Ella were nervous, holding each other's hands tightly as they faced the small stage. Alexander, seated in the front row, watched them intently, heart pounding. Maya sat beside him, hands clasped nervously, her gaze flicking between the girls and him. Emma went first, reciting her lines perfectly. At the end, she looked directly at Alexander and whispered, "Daddy." The room was quiet, but to Alexander, it felt as though the entire world had stopped. His eyes glistened as he stood, clapping and cheering louder than anyone else, emotions overwhelming him. Ella followed, hesitantly at first, then with a shy smile. Calling Daddy to Maya watched quietly, her chest swelling with relief and cautious hope. Years of absence, avoidance, and heartbreak had been bridged in a single moment. The twins' words confirming Alexander's place in their lives, and perhaps in hers as well. That evening, back at home, Alexander tucked the twins into bed. Emma clung to him tightly. "Don't ever leave again, Daddy," she whispered. Ella, nestled against Maya, added softly, "Please stay, I promise," he said, holding them close. "I'll always stay. Always." Maya entered quietly, watching the tender scene. She felt tears spill over, the weight of past doubts lifting slowly. "You've proven yourself," she said softly, not with words, but with every action. "You're here, you're theirs, and that's all that matters." Alexander turned to her, reaching for her hand. "I never want to lose them again. Or you. I've learned that some things, love, family, trust, are worth everything." Maya nodded, finally allowing herself to hope fully. "Then stay," she whispered. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Alexander maintained his commitment, balancing work with fatherhood, showing up consistently, and nurturing the bond with Emma and Ella. The twins flourished, growing confident and joyful in his presence. Maya allowed herself to lean on him, the walls she had built around her heart slowly crumbling. The family began to experience normalcy. Playdates, bedtime stories, meals together, laughter, and even the occasional disagreement that reminded them they were real, flawed, human. Alexander understood that family wasn't about perfection. It was about presence, patience, and unconditional love. One evening, as they sat together in the park, watching the sunset, Emma and Ella played side by side, occasionally running to their father for a hug or a gentle spin. Maya leaned against Alexander, feeling the warmth of his hand on hers. "I never thought this was possible," she admitted softly. "It's more than possible," he said, smiling. "It's real, and it's ours." And in that golden light, with laughter echoing around them, and the twins' tiny hands entwined with his, Alexander Kane finally understood what he had been running from all those years: love, family, and the extraordinary life waiting for him once he stopped avoiding it. He spent years avoiding love, but in the end, the tiny wristbands and the faces of his daughters had rewritten his entire world. Redemption, connection, and true happiness were no longer distant dreams. They were here. They were real. They were his. Life can surprise us in ways we never expect. Alexander Kane avoided love and responsibility for years, only to discover that the greatest treasure he had ignored was right in front of him: his twin daughters. This story is a reminder that showing up, being present, and committing wholeheartedly can heal old wounds and create new beginnings. Share this video with someone who believes in second chances, and let us know in the comments how you would react if faced with such a revelation. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more heart-touching family stories.